Welcome back, I'm Multeyemeteor, and this is the fourth and final introductory video for the clavos or the nations of Llawyhn in the Seasons of Llawyhn set that I've made. Again, I'd like to, just in case you stumble onto this video and haven't seen any of the previous videos, all cards are made by me. There are 247 spells and special lands in total, 10 basic lands and 19 tokens. All the card art, however, is not made by me, and that's I've talked about it in the previous video, so I'm not going to make a huge deal about it. But I don't set out to exploit these things. If this becomes a thing, if this set becomes something which could potentially become profitable, I'm going to refrain from using any of the card art unless I contact the artists themselves. It's just made for fun, and it's just made because I needed some kind of visual theme that was graspable and which made sense to the people who played it and to myself and so on when I created it. All right, that being said, let's continue on to what this video is about. It's about the final clavo. It's about the Lumin, which is in a sense the most mysterious of the clavos and most mysterious of the nations. People don't really know where they come from, or if they came from any specific ancestor in a sense, or if they just emerged out of something. But they are kind of like I think the easiest way to describe them, but it's not a complete description of them, is that they are a mix between very, very careful bankers, manipulators, politicians, technocrats, and the Borg from Star Trek. They like to take control of creatures and assimilate them into their culture and kind of modify them, augment them, and use a kind of a like magic, almost steampunkish, almost biotechnological technology to both take control of these creatures and assimilate them into their collectivist culture. So that is pretty much the Lumin right there. They have their main color is blue and colorless, and it's going to sound strange, and also life. They use life as a way of casting spells often. So often a spell will be really cheap, but you have to pay, for example, a very high life cost at the same time, or something to that effect. And they also utilize a lot of artifacts and artifact creatures and so on or as opposed to all the other clavos. They are also represented at the Llawyhn High Council, although they are kind of looked at with a little bit of skepticism by some of the other clavos, like the Vejivo and the Tersh. But the Vejivo has still employed them as a very close ally because they are not very Bane-centric. They don't believe in monsters. They are very much about collectivism and peace and maintaining that peace. And although the Vejivo consider them to be a threat down the line, they consider them to be a very close ally right now, mainly because they see the power of their ways and their huge amount of resources that they are able to generate. Their main abilities or their mechanics here are what I like to call siphoning. It's not a keyword, but it is a way of converting life into mana and the other way around. They have a lot of life gain and life link and so on, and they have a lot of ways of using their life to pay for spells or pay for creatures and so on. So aside from that, they have a lot of control. They don't really have a keyword per se that is unique or new, but they do have like a lot of control mechanics where they take over creatures or they create new creatures and so on. And if they had some, well, if there's like a main theme that goes along with it as well in terms of abilities, it's also -1/-1 counters, which they are able to put onto their own creatures or other creatures and shift them around a little bit, or remove them, or gain life from putting -1/-1 counters on their creatures. And when this creature dies, maybe it has an ability that triggers where you can move all those -1/-1 counters over to one of your opponent's creatures or something like that. So it's very much about control, and it's very much about playing with your life total and playing with using it to invest in a better board state and in kind of taking over your opponent's situation. Let's take a look at some of the cards that some specific cards. What should we look at here? Let's, for example, we have the Lumin medallion. It's kind of a ramp card, but in a Lumin kind of way. It's a 2-cost artifact, and its effect is that if a spell would require you to spend, and that's a new way of articulating it, because in this set you have a lot of spells where you spend instead of lose life. So when you spend life, here it's also lose life, but there's some other situations where if somebody spent life, something specific happens, or it becomes cheaper or whatever. So it makes it more voluntary. You can't, if you spend life, you can't have an effect that prevents losing life. So if you cast a spell and it requires you to spend or lose life, when you cast it, reduce life spent or lost by 1. So that makes it a little bit cheaper in that regard. Then let's take a look at some of the creatures here. For example, you have the Luminized Blade Bearer. It's really, really, really powerful. You can cast it for 2. It's a 3/1 with first strike. You can cast it for 2 blue mana and lose 2 life, or you can cast it for 4 mana and 4 life and no mana spent, and you can basically cast this on your first turn. You're of course at 16 life, but you have a 3/1 with first strike, so that's very powerful. But if you don't, in some way, shape, or form, solidify and stabilize and get your life gain mechanic going, it's going to be difficult for you to deal with the fact that you're spending a lot of life on stabilizing and solidifying your board position. There's also, for example, I wanted to introduce. No, let's take a look at this. Sorry, I'm just jumping around a little bit. I'm doing this on the fly. I have the Hybrid Force Guard here, which is a 3-cost, 3 blue, of course. Lumin Giant, which is a 5/4. When you cast it, you spend 3 life. It has a very, very powerful ability, which is you spend 1 life and you prevent 1 damage done to Hybrid Force Guard. So you need to do a lot of damage to Hybrid Force Guard in order to either force this Lumin player to discard it, or to let it be killed, or to let the damage, it's always kind of a gamble. How much damage do you want to do to Hybrid Force Guard? Because you always you also want your opponent to take enough life or enough damage for him to, to prevent his Hybrid Force Guard from dying, but at the same time still remain alive. So there's a little bit of interplay here. Let's see. There's also, I wanted to show you another guy here. Where do we have it? We have we have this one. Luminizing Technobiot, or Technobiot, is a 5-cost, 3 blue, 2 colorless, and as an additional casting cost, you spend 3 life. That's pretty expensive, in essence. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a -1/-1 counter on it, and it's a 5/5. But you can also you can spend 2 mana and tap Luminizing Technobiot and transfer any number of -1/-1 kind of counters from it to target creature. And if this creature dies from this, and it can only die from this, not from any other effect, you may return that creature from the graveyard to the battlefield under your control. So that's kind of like it kind of shows the essence of the Lumin, they have this play with life and with with degeneration and maintenance and also controlling and assimilating other creatures into their culture. What else? Let's take a look at some spells. One which is, it's not necessarily very Lumin. I just really like it. You can play this in any blue deck. It's called Time Wash. It's a cheaper time warp. It costs 3 blue, which is easy to cast for a Lumin, but it's a little bit more difficult to cast for dual colored or tricolored decks. But in addition to Time Wash's casting cost, you spend 2 life. That's kind of to make up for the fact that it's only 3 cost, not a 5 cost for a time warp. But here's the caveat, or the kicker. You destroy all creatures at the same time. They can't be regenerated. And then you go directly to the end step, and then you take another turn. So you get another turn to rebuild, and you reset the board, and it's your turn next time. So this should be considered much more a Wrath of God or an Armageddon or something like that, instead of considering it as a time warp, because you wipe your own board and then you get to rebuild. Whereas when you cast Wrath of God, you wipe your own board and usually you don't have too much mana left over to rebuild before your opponent. So this is the other way around in a sense. It gives you the next turn to start rebuilding again. What else? Oh, this one I thought was really powerful as well. It's a and really unique in a sense. It's very different from all other control spells in the sense that this empowering influence. It costs only 2. To begin with, at least, and it enchants target creature. You don't gain control of that creature. It still remains on your opponent's side, but you can spend 1 life, and you may force this creature to attack, block, or refrain from either until end of combat. And this overrules the choice of this creature's controller. So, if your opponent decides to attack, you can pay 1 life and say, nope, this creature doesn't attack. Or if your opponent decides to hold back to protect this creature, you can decide, nope, he swings in, and that's there's some play here, and your opponent is not powerless because he can, if he knows that you don't have anything to block with, he can decide to swing in, and you have to pay 1 life in order to stay back. But still, it gives you some realm of influence there. Furthermore, you may attack this creature's abilities at any time its controller could activate them if there's a mana cost, spent life equal to the converted mana cost instead. So you can activate that creature's abilities, and instead of paying a certain combination of life, of mana, you pay it in life. But at the same time, it has a sort of a life link, except that this life link is linked to you. So all the life that this creature deals, or all the damage that this creature deals in life, all the damage that this creature deals is returned to you in life, just like if it has life link and if it was your creature. So I think this is pretty interesting, especially because it's a little tricky, and you can either play it really poorly or you can figure it out entirely and use it to manipulate your opponent really well. So I think good players will find a way to manipulate a situation with this card. Anyways, I'm not going to be showing you too much else, I think, other than I'm going to be showing you a pretty insane card that I came up with for the Lumin. There's lots of special lands in this set, but there's a few more, particularly for the Lumin, because they don't have they only have 1 color, that's blue, and then they have life as a way of casting spells. So I wanted to do something different for the Lumin as well, to show that they are a little bit special. They have this card called Dominion Node, which is a rare land, and you can play up to 4 of them. There is not a legendary land. When it enters the battlefield, you lose half of your life total, rounded down. Add this many Dominion counters to the Dominion Node. So basically what this does is it separates your life into to you and your life bank, in a sense. It's your node, it's your resource, it's your bank of resources. What it does is that once you put the life into this bank, into this Dominion node, you cannot die from having less than 1 life. But if you would have less than 1 life, you have to sacrifice Dominion node, and then you gain life equal to the counters on it. That means that your opponent can't make a huge swing, kill you, because you just go down to 0. Your Dominion node is sacrificed, and you gain all the counters in life. So you have kind of this life buffer with Dominion node, which is really, really powerful. If you play several of the Dominion nodes, you can choose to just sacrifice one of them. Also, furthermore, to kind of build on the flavor of this being a very like economically savvy clavo, the Lumin's Dominion node here has the ability to, or the effect where you can tap it and add 1 Dominion node to all Dominion nodes in play. So what this does is basically it becomes interest. You put your resources into the Dominion node, and it builds up your resources. So if you have to pop it at some point, if your opponent gets you down to 0, you pop the Dominion node and you have more life than you started out with, in a sense. So yeah, very, very powerful effect, and it kind of shows off that there's something a little bit more technological, economically savvy, Borg-ish about the Lumin, and they are definitely a force to be reckoned with. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. This video has been running a little long here, but yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'm multeyemeteor. This was the final of the introduction videos for the 4 main clavos and nations of Llawyhn in the Seasons of Llawyhn set. Yep, leave me a comment if you have anything on your mind, and yeah, aside from that, hope you enjoyed. Later.